My name is Blair Sugan. Thanks for joining us here on The Pulse. And it has now become an annual ritual for rains to wreak havoc. And as we know, the floods in Ghana, and in most cases, it results in injuries, deaths, and some destruction of property as well. Successive governments have, in their own ways and methods, have fashioned some strategies to address the problem. But why have these measures not worked over the years? Is there really a plan that will work effectively to address this crisis and the situation that we face? Why have we not successfully try as much as possible to solve this crisis? This afternoon, we host the Director General of the National Development Planning Committee, Dr. Kojo Mensah Abrampa. But before that, let's bring you a background story where we have two reports from Floods of Trauma series. First is that of Maxwell Agbagba, who engaged a victim of the June 3 flood and fire disaster at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle here in Accra. That is coming your way shortly. But that's in Accra. As we know, the flood waters all over the country. In terms of this crisis that we're dealing with, they threaten lives and inundate homes and businesses, destroy properties as well, and damage property, as well as preventing access to essential needs. So for our Floods of Trauma series as well, Nana Yalwachi Adam has been visiting some residents of Denche, that's Dechemso in the Ashanti region, and these persons have been facing some sort of apprehension as their homes experience persistent flooding. Just take a look at the situation to paint that picture, national one for you, as the crisis that we are facing.
This isn't a moat house. Neither is it a stilt building. This is an ordinary home in Dechemso, a popular community in Kumasi. In a traumatic event such as flooding, residents experience difficulty sleeping. They get depressed, angry, and heightened feelings of anxiety.
So you can see, it takes some tactics or techniques to get into this building. So residents have adopted another route. Instead of using this particular gate, they would have to use another stretch. Even at some point in time, they have to jump this particular wall before they can get out of their house.
With the slightest formation of dark clouds, Ikrinya trembles. Her house is flooded after a downpour a week ago.
In so tower has say ya, that woman say, when your baby and fat. Just a year, just hope you have one thing. I got about 3 hours, 4 hours. And Sana, what by inside?
When it rains, it gets to my neck. When the house floods, you have to go out for about 3 hours before you can get back to the house.
A year, and then the area have another Muhanya at check. Can I crack a moon to mean Jana say?
In so tall last week.
Last rough any area at check. And then I'm here, Valanda Muha.
The flood waters reached the window level of the building and covered almost all her personal belongings in her room. Days after the heavy flooding, she is still counting her losses.
We are
suffering. My child is unable to go to school because his books get wet. My room is flooded.
Now this is the means of exit for anybody in this particular building. Because the house has flooded, they use this wall, this fence wall, as a means of exit.
Streams in the community are blocked with gutters clogged. This isn't enough to properly channel the water at a rate that allows it to fully transport all the dirt, twigs, and leaves it collects, causing floods in the community.
Now all gutters in this community is connected to this particular stream. The stream is unable to house the water because it is covered with sand. To allow the stream collect all the water, they have to scoop out the sand, and that is what is going on here.
Yeah, probably but I could do Chiwanuma, Hanabaku for us at Fiono, Anabashia, and we suppose she will be Abada, Abacasina.
When it rains, the stream is unable to contain the water. This area gets flooded anytime it rains. When it happens, It breaks down the walls and destroys properties.
The Dichemso Community Mosque closer to the stream has flooded, leaving worshippers to adopt a smaller space for worship. Amos Mensah has been in the community for the past 12 years. He narrates the situation anytime there is a downpour.
Because of a formula, I say, and so not I was saying. A strong queen, as I say, a yeguma. So I have from concern that that's the time because of Sabi Papa and Yamisan Kanakwe, and so
this nice mosque isn't functional anymore because of flood. We only use a small portion. When it rains, you can't use this route. The problem here is huge. This is the main Mensah road. The Kumasi airport is just here. They should do something. We even see crocodiles in the stream sometimes.
The flooded mosque can be described as a pond for fishing. They want government to solve the flood problem in the community.
We plead with the government to do something about this for us. We don't have any money to rent a new house.
Authorities should fix the gutters for us. If not, our challenge will continue anytime it rains.
For Joy News, my name is Nana Boachidankwayado, Kumasi.
Well, that's the case in the Ashanti region, but my colleague Maxwell Agbaba has also been tracking the journey of one man who's been affected by the June 3 disaster. There's more in this report.
It is the evening of June 3, 2015. Flood water has displaced fuel from the storage tank underground at a fuel station at Circle. What we know is that a cigarette butt was dropped on the water, triggering a big explosion and a huge fireball that turned the skies orange. The flames continued to burn in a room nearby. He suffered severe burns on his face. It completely disfigured him. Eight years later, on a Monday morning, I meet Solomon at East Legon doing what he does every day, begging for alms. That is his only means of survival. He used to sell air freshness but lost his capital when a friend stole his wares. Begging on the streets of East Legon is very difficult for him. Sometimes he gets nothing even after begging the whole day. He says some drivers do not want to see him close to their cars because of his disfigured face. He tells me about an incident where a man asked him to remove the mask he was wearing and stop begging on the streets.
I only get food to eat when I go to the traffic light to beg for money. Many people do not give me money there. Some of them sack me when I get closer to their cars. Some of them think I am wearing a mask. A man once told me to go and look for a job and stop wearing the mask. A lot of people tell me that. I am really suffering here. The hardship is real. I am always scared when it starts raining because I am homeless. I always sleep in front of shops because I do not have a place I call my home.
Solomon's parents separated after the fire destroyed their house at Seko. He fears no woman will be attracted to him because of his disfigured face. He says marriage will be difficult because no woman is attracted to him.
I really need the surgery because I am experiencing a lot of stigmatization. People do not want me closer to them because of my disfigured face. That's why I need the surgery. Because that will also help me get a woman to marry later in life. For now, no woman wants me. Even the drivers in cars find it difficult to give me money. Nobody wants me around. When the sun is out and hot and the light hits my face, it's really painful. That's why I need help. I can't touch it because blood will start oozing from my face if I do. So I go and hide in the shade until it's evening.
He's pleading for a job as a tiler and is also begging for assistance for plastic surgery. There are many Solomons out there who are living the trauma of the June 3 floods. Victims of the disaster, including Solomon, are yet to be compensated. Last year, the One Ghana movement reminded the government to do so. Yes, a member, Senyo Husi.
As expected, authorities trooped in to this very space and on the streets, promising, as usual, to bring perpetrators to book. 7 years on, no one has been held accountable for this very avoidable disaster. The government of the day and the government today have all but paid lip service to justice, accountability, and commensurate compensation for victims.
The One Ghana movement has since 2017 been pursuing justice for the persons affected. One of their lawyers, Samson Ladi Anyenini, led the matter in court in 2018. The case is still pending. He says it has been a very slow process.
Because there have been what we call interlocutory processes in the course. But just very recently, we seem to have cleared some of the hurdles. So actually, we're in court, this week. Apart from the plaintiffs that were mobilized by One Ghana movement, we know, as a matter of fact, later, as we discovered, that there were many more who were affected who are not part of the suit in court. Some had left to their villages, some had left to their hometowns, various places. It's unfortunate that the law has a limitation period within which you can take a suit, and in excess of 5 years you don't have that opportunity. But I believe that even for those who are in court, the state could look at this more carefully and see what could be done to everybody. For as long as there will be evidence to show that somebody is suffering as a result of what happened, I think that the state could look at being the father for all kind of thing.
Many continue to live through these dangerous floods of trauma, and others are scarred for life. Maxwell Awagba, Joy News.
And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. When we return, we'll speak to Dr. Kojo Mensah Abrampa, who's the Director General of the National Development Planning Commission. Is my guest here on The Pulse. Please stay. And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. It's time now to go into what plan we have as a nation in dealing with this perennial problem of flooding. And fortunate to have Dr. Kojo Abrampa, who's the Director General of the National Development Planning Commission, joining us in studio. He's my guest for today here on The Pulse. Such a pleasure of having you in our studios.
Thank you.
When we talk about flooding, many believe that, well, it's a problem that we can't solve as a nation, so let's just live with it. What do you have in your books as to what Ghanaians, first of all, think about the situation and as to whether or not we are in a position to solve this?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to talk once again about the flooding issue in the country. We can solve it. There's no problem which is unsurmountable. Definitely we can. But it also depends on the process and the approach that we are undertaking. And I think that it is also multifaceted, and that is why it takes a long time for you to feel the impact and even see what we are doing in the positive direction. We have a concerted plan which is looking at that, quite comprehensive, dating 30 years, looking ahead. Why? Because as it is for our country, parts of our country are generally below sea level. And once you are below sea level, it means that the water table is very high. So just a little downpour is already flooded. And therefore, you need to look at how we plan towards that. Unfortunately, our national capital falls within that range of just a short few amount of rain, and we are already there. So if you look at the past, the plan had been leaving what we call the pools or the ponds. And these are natural ponds. Right. So if you look at the plan of Accra, way back in 1963, those who designed it, they left a lot of these areas for it to be guarded and water collecting there after rains. One of it, which is quite popular now, is what we call the lakeside. So that whole area is a natural pond, deliberately created and left by the planners for it to be used as a collecting point. And then the water eases off or it evaporates. There's another one near Atomic. There's another one near Dansuma.
Okay.
And then there are about 7 of them. In fact, Rage happens to be one of them. So if you look at Rage, the way the colonial masters, for instance, built the place, they leave out what they call the stitches, the pillars, and then the water flows. There's another one near Teshi. Unfortunately for us, we have not been quite meticulous in protecting these areas. I go through some of the areas in Accra, and you find out that all these places practically have become built, except the Atomic area.
And the reason why we're bringing you into this conversation is because we believe that as part of the solution, we cannot leave out the NDPC.
Definitely. Yes.
Right. And I'm, in fact, surprised to know that you have a blueprint which could potentially solve this problem. Yes. What's the name of this document and what's it seeking?
It's a GIP, the Ghana Infrastructure Plan. And this was completed and launched in 2018. Right. It's supposed to go all the way to 2047 to guide us in our infrastructure development. We will say that the accounts have a proverb, very funny proverb, but so those that we could not protect, we need to leave it behind, and going forward, we need to protect it. Those ones that we can. So we're working with other ministries, and that is the essence of NDPC. It works as a range of ministries, because if you look at flooding, it's concerned the Ministry of Local Government, it's concerned Works and Housing, it's concerned finance, sanitation, all that, environment, Ministry of Science, Environment.
In fact, it concerns every
single So we need to work in concession. That is the essence of putting this infrastructure together. And so moving forward, we are put it in ranges. If you look at the plan, short term, what do we need to do? The medium term, what do you need to do? And then the long term, what we need to do. The short term mostly concerns with responding to emergencies when these floods come up, while dealing with the minor issues where we can marshal up and mobilize the resources to deal with. One of it is to prevent the water from coming in. So 2 areas. looking at the coastal areas, and this has been responded to largely. If you look at the western part, the central region, all those areas have been responded to going to a Volta region and the other areas. The other range has to do with the source of these water flows. If you look at Accra, the problem is not Accra Plains. The problem is coming from the ridge, the Kwapim Ridge.
Right.
Because the water flows from there, and it comes with silts. When it comes to silt, what happens is that almost all the drains, after a heavy rainfall, are filled with this silt. Because up the Kwapim Hill too, we have the sandstone. Okay. And once people continue to construct on the Kwapim Hill, they are getting the soil loosened up.
Right.
And once the soil loosens up, once it rains, it comes down with it, blocks the drains. And then when it blocks the drains, it's not able to retain the water, but the water begins to spread. Right. And the hydrological department has a different scenario of this, showing how much of excess water gets into Accra anytime it rains. So we need to solve the problem. First, it has to do with controlling the building activities on the top. And unfortunately, you drive now towards Eburi, Pediase, you look on your left and right, and the construction activities going on is enormous, as if we don't have people assigned to manage and control.
But if you want to face this, it will still come back to the political class, isn't it? And these are people that you cannot easily eject out of that place.
Well, everybody is a human being, and it takes people who have responsibility for that to make sure that it's done. They have district chief executive, municipal chief executives, who are responsible for these areas.
But it's not as easy. That's my point. It's not as easy as you're making it sound.
It is, but it takes. It's not just coming out with brute force, but it takes dialogue.
Right.
Sometimes it takes realization. People who are constructing over there sometimes do not even know the impact. So it takes being also aware of some of the nuisance you're causing within the whole range of areas down to Accra. Look at all the facilities and properties and down there, you're creating a problem for them. So we need to solve this problem not only by using brute force or anything like that, but also engage in dialogue, engage in conversation. There is no piece of land in Ghana which is not owned by a chief. To what extent do we engage them in solving this problem? Do we make it just through the formal system, official system, or do we engage these owners for them also to know? Because eventually they give out the land.
But this is reversing and negating the long-held perception that the problem has been downstream, where we've seen heightened use of polythene products. Have you had that discussion? What's your survey telling you? What is that telling you? Because initially, I thought you were going to refer simply to this case of pollution and the use of
that is just
polythene bags and all that.
Part of the problem.
It's not been the major headache.
It is a minute part of the problem.
Really?
But it's also the easiest to deal with. People pouring refuse into the gutters and the drains and all that. It's a minute part of the problem, but the easier part to deal with it. Then you need to look at the whole range of waste management process. But it's one area which we also feel gratifying because we realize that it is reducing. It is one area where it's reduced. The amount of waste that gets into the system is gradually reducing. There's been a long discussion just about a month ago on the blue economy. And one of the things which came up with dealing with these plastics. And the Ministry of Water and Sanitation is really, really working on that. And it's quite gratifying. That is just one part. The other part, which has not been dealt with, is the technical part. The size of the drains and other things. And the hydrological department has done a lot of simulation on that, but it requires huge amount of resource outlay to be able to accomplish it. And if you look at the amount that we also have, what I call free balance to be used for capital investment, and compared to how much that area alone requires, it means that it's going to take us quite a long time to be able to do that.
But it's not still we've not seen interventions. For instance, that there's this, and there is still the Garrett project, for instance. I recall speaking to, management of that framework, and part of the complaint is that, yes, we want to run the project, but when you come downstream, there are people who are equally developing significant properties around the drains. You don't want to clear them as well.
This is it. This is what I said. The Gary project is looking at it in a comprehensive manner. to deal with the whole problem together. It involves more than 8 municipalities working together, some of it even from Eastern region, others in Central region. So pooling all these together.
What do you recommend? Demolishing the structures?
Look, if there's a need to demolish one to be able to save 10, and I am a planner, I look at the cost benefits. Why do you have to keep it? Because when it floods, it doesn't, and if you look at the simulation which they've developed, it's going to affect a whole range of buildings. So if you deal with one, take away one, and then save about 20, why wouldn't we do that? We should be able to do that. And more so when you do not have the necessary permit, you do not get it registered, the land use and special planning unit did not give you the permit, EPA did not give you a permit, and you put up a structure there, which is again affecting legally constructed facilities, then we don't see the reason why it should be here. And that's what makes us a state. Right. A state means that you are balancing interests, and more so making sure that laws are effected, implemented, and yield the result that are expected from your people. And that is why, if you look at recently, look at the land use and planning, special planning unit, it's a whole retooling going on. There's a whole restructuring of the system. They move from MST to local government so as to strengthen and work directly with the district chief executive, municipal chief executive on this matter. And this is an area where, again, the Ministry of Works and Housing, practically its whole budget is looking at drains. They're working a lot in that area because it's not just Accra, it's Sekondi Takoradi, it is Kumasi, it is Tamale. And these are areas where we have our properties and including national strategic investment, which are all vulnerable to this process. And so it's an area that if you look at the infrastructure plan, we devoted a lot of time, brains, and all that we need to do, like Garrett is doing, to be able to segment it and implement.
I'm looking at the money. Doc, how much will it cost Ghana to effectively tackle this issue of flooding?
I will not hazard a figure now, but I'm sure if I go to the details of the plan, it brings out phase by phase. If every district assembly in this country can devote 30% of its resources over the range of time, which means that our collective budget, 30% of it over a range of time, given that we are also satisfying all the essential requirements, we should be able to do that. But 30% is enormous, given how much of our budget we devote for infrastructure for that matter and CAPEX. It is huge.
So you haven't put a cost to
we have done that. I must say that. But
do you have a rough figure of how much it's looking like?
I will not hazard it because we're in the public.
Are you not being diplomatic because you know the money is simply something we cannot afford?
I'm not being diplomatic, but as I said, if you quote 30% and you have a capex of about an average of about 10% a year, forget about the arrears which we need to pay, then it means that it's quite something which is challenging to the country. Notwithstanding that, a huge range of this can be changed by our own attitudes. So a huge proportion of the resources can be saved if attitudes of the people and the way we do our things change with respect to construction, with respect to sanitation, with respect to our usual habit of digging anywhere, cutting any tree anywhere. This can save us a lot. And these are immediate things which can be done without much resources going there. That is it. So I call it the soft, cheaper side.
That we could deal with without necessarily being fixated on the money.
Exactly.
But how about the timelines? And I see that the document you're talking about is a long-term strategy. This will transcend governments. We need to be, we need to be very factual about it. That's a long-term vision.
Yes, it is. Let me say that it's already transcended the government already. Because it was started at the time that we had the 2015. And it's gone all the way through to 2018. So it's gone through two governments in terms of the planning. So it's not looking at any particular government, it's looking at Ghana as a whole and how we can deal with this problem. What we are doing now is to look at the short-term things. So one of it, which I've mentioned, is the coastal area. It's essential. The second one is Garrett, which is very, very essential. There's also a process ongoing for Kumasi. There's another one, Tamale. The whole commercial area is a challenge when it rains. And some of the areas which has to do with the slums. So the slum areas are critical. So an area around Nima and the other areas, we are looking at reinforcing some of these drainage facilities. And you could see it in last year's budget of Ministry of Works and Housing. So there are shorter ones which are critical. If we're able to deal with the retaining point at Atomic, I tell you, it will save a lot downstream. And that's part of the Garrett project. Unfortunately, there's a big challenge we're already facing. As we are saving that space, people are also building.
Yeah.
And so it's a big challenge which is confronting the...
What did you recommend in this document on that?
Basically, what we said was making sure that we effect these laws. And then effecting that law and implementing that law led to the restrengthening of LUSPA, which is very, very important. Now it worked directly with the district assembly. So if assembly detects the problem, it doesn't need to go to another ministry to solve it. It is there with them. And we have, all the assemblies now have fiscal planning departments. So once they determine this structure hasn't got a permit, they have every right to deal with it. The other thing is dealing with the judicial process, because you need a permit to be able to pull down somebody's structure. So that is one area to where there's a lot of collaboration over the period with the judicial service to expedite this. And so these are all the systems we are putting in place. The key thing in the first leg is to put in the systems. Once the systems are established and the capacity is provided, we're very sure that we'll be able to deal with that. And if you have a shorter period, you know very well that, look, they go to court within a month, your structure will be pulled down. Nobody would dare put on a structure without being registered. But if you know that, well, there could be a whole litigation over 10 years, by the time you might even be dead, then you can take the risk.
Let's wrap up on the issue of legislation, because that will be critical going forward. At least if there's a law that gives an upper hand in terms of financial allocation and also dealing with the structural challenges that we face, it will be a lot more easier. What are you considering, putting on the table for policymakers to consider in terms of which kind of laws we should be considering now and what timelines we should be applying to?
In terms of laws and policies, basically what we've been doing throughout the period, and the short-term period, is harmonization. Why? Because a lot of them are already existing. The LUSPA Act, which is not old, it's just 2016, which was passed 2020, it started full effectiveness and blast of it. We have also the Local Government Act, which is also not old. It is also 2016. So a lot of that have been done. It looks at, and then the financing part of it, the PFM Act. So a lot of them exist. It's a matter of implementation. And what we saw was that the policy complementation is very, very important. They complemented each other, and also coordination for the implementation. So since last year, we've had series of meetings with group and institutions, departments, and all that. In fact, I just came from another meeting, which is looking at something else. So that's what we've been doing. And in my development coordination department has looked at this critically, how the institutions can work together and interpret the law in the same manner and act in the same manner, reinforcing each other. In a situation where the district assembly says that, you bring LUSPA, land use planning, they're also saying something else, then you have a problem. So this is the kind of thing we are doing, effective coordination, so that the implementation will be coordinated. Again, we're also looking at how resources flow could reinforce activities. So and then sequencing, so that if you are supposed to do A, you do it. B continues, C continues. If you are doing something like Garrett and pulling all this together in a sequential manner, we use that as a case and do that for the other.
Okay. Doc, one thing that I will take away with me after this conversation is the fact that there's also some level of divergence when it comes to long-term planning for the country. You agree with me?
Divergence in terms of...
We've not been consistent with our development policy. Okay. I recall that, for instance, when the NPP administration came into power, they dealt with and they are still dealing with a coordinated mechanism that's supposed to span, I guess, 8 years. The senior minister at the time was talking about it. Then there was the monitoring and evaluation ministry, the planning ministry at the time, doing a coordinated 8-year development plan because Obviously, they did not believe in the 100-year or the previous one that was being done. How do we address this as a country?
It's very
long-term development.
People have complained about it, but it's more of a process than the issue itself.
Right.
You see, every plan begins with a long-term plan, which is a perspective. It gives the general direction of where we want to go. And then a plan, in our Ghanaian case, is broken down into 8-year period, which is guided by our own constitution. So if you look at our constitution, 36.5 is very specific. Yeah. As soon as you are elected, you come out with a plan. The plan responds to a long-term perspective. The plan responds to a long-term, which is a technical document. The long-term plan is not a political document.
But you agree that there's always divergence in terms of how a government
let me push it this way.
Yes, right.
Once a long-term document is a technical document, the government comes in, having been elected and given the mandate of the people. But the government does what we call political technical dialogue. This is what you want to do. Then the technical people tell you this is the reality. You cannot do this in 4 years because this is what the process is. So this is a dialogue, which is not a public thing.
Are you suggesting to us that there's a constitutional restriction to having a development framework that will guide each and every government that comes into power?
It's basically not a restriction. There's no restriction. It is done, but the processes, it is there, which is done. But you can't restrict a government what to do because a plan is indicative. Right. What you want to do in 30 years, we don't have it. We have only used projections. So the reality is that when the person is elected, then you bring this is the situation. So this is what we wanted to do. This is the strategy we propose. But then planners, what we do is that we have also a 4-year plan. The 4-year plan identifies alternatives because then there has been a dialogue with the government. So these are the alternatives. You can do A, these are the implications. B, these are the implications. C, these are the implications. And the government has a choice among these alternatives. So in terms of the management, it's that people just assume that we don't have a long-term perspective. But there is always a long-term perspective. There's always been. Sometimes short-lived, sometimes reviewed. Just in 2021, we had to review all our plans because of the COVID. Because of the conflict. So we've done this review immediately.
So you don't believe in the long-term development policy?
No, we have it.
Yeah. But that's okay. So let me reframe this. President Akufo-Addo is running with an 8-year long-term development plan. Is that the case? Beyond him, what then happens? That's my question. Why not have a single policy document that has all political parties revolving around?
Sorry, you said President Akufo-Addo is right. No, President Akufo-Addo is enjoined by the Constitution to come out with a program.
Okay.
As soon as the program
which is running with.
As soon as the program is approved, it becomes a national program.
But he's restricted, as you're pointing to, 8 years. Beyond President Akufo-Addo, what happens?
You see, beyond President Akufo-Addo, we have a perspective plan, which is there.
But another government will come in and may not be compelled to use it. That's my fear.
The point is that we always say may not be compelled. But that is the process.
We've never seen that before, Doc. You agree?
That a government is what?
Will come in and continue what someone else has been doing.
A lot. You see, sometimes we say it because we look at the surface. The continuation is more about 70%.
Really?
Yes, it's more about 70%. We haven't gone to the ground to find out. And even those which are not continued by programs, very often, what happens is that governments, when they start a program, often do not have the full outlay of resource flow. So if I'm able to get 20% of it, let it go. When another government comes, there might be a lapse. And a lapse means that you have a liability to pay. That is it. So when a new government is elected, then they feel very uncomfortable taking up this liability before starting a new project. So then they look at the cost benefit. To be better if I start a new project than going to pay this liability, which is there. So in order to cure that, in 2016, they came out with an act, which also has an LI, 2411, which says that for a government to start a major project, you must indicate the full resource flow. And there's a committee that polices this. So now it is established. And the committee is not just politicians. private sector, technical people who are on it. So this is the cure. So we realize that it is more economic for a reason why government do not continue with projects and less political. And that is it. Because every government would like to score a victory with completing a project.
So we're doing convenience politicking?
No, it's not convenient.
Yeah, because all governments will pick and choose. So wouldn't you suggest at this point that we bring up a law that will compel?
You see, if you bring up a law that will compel, reality speaks. So reality is better than comparing.
Right.
If you're saying that the law already exists in our constitution, 35(7), it says it. It said as far as practicable, you should continue.
Right.
So the constitution even gives a lapse there, a space for you to maneuver. So to make it practical, we say that if you start a project, give the full financial flow. So if the next government comes, they just follow because they know where the money is coming from, instead of going around and wasting time. And that is quite practical. Then tell somebody I have a whip.
Yeah.
Hey, if you don't need this is the king. It's not realistic. So the reality is that let us have the resources. Right. And when there are resources, we have done it in the research shows, governments continue. Where they aren't, then you give them the chance to say, we're not going to continue.
Doc, we need to go. Any message for our viewers, Ghanaians out there?
Well, let me say that Ghana, one thing has been hammered over this year a lot. The mindset, attitude. We realize that that's a huge cost for us, even for our development. The whole thing we're talking about infrastructure rests with that. Maintenance is an issue. People would like to see new things instead of maintaining what is there. This is an attitude. People would like to also, think about themselves, throw the waste into a drain, and they think they've solved their problem. But you are creating more problems for yourself and other people. So I would say that we're working on that. It starts from our children.
Yeah. Don't
tell the children, put the rubbish at the corner. If you do that, the person comes of age, they will do that. Yeah. You don't tell a child, when the child wants to, free itself, go to the toilet and say, do it in the sand. You don't get that person going to the washroom after the person growing up. So it is starting with our children. And there's a whole range of WASH program around that, which is working on these attitudes. And I think that if the attitudes are changed, we can do it. Ghanaians are doing it somewhere else.
Right.
Why can't they do it in their own country?
Doc, we'll have this conversation again because there are so many aspects that we need to do in terms of development planning. Thank you for spending some time with us. Let's talk politics now because flag bearer aspirant Alan Kojo-Kyerematen has become the first of 10 aspirants seeking to lead the new Patriotic Party into the 2024 elections to appear before the vetting committee of the party. The former Trade and Industry Minister is expected to answer some questions about his eligibility, general party matters, and the national affairs before the vetting committee clears him. Now, this committee is being chaired by the former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Quay. We'll take you now to the party headquarters. No, we understand that there's an office here in the Greater Accra region where the party is holding that vetting. And let's get more from Samuel Mbura, who's there for us. I mean, what can you tell us about the process so far?
So, blessed day, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is expected to come and address the media. He came here about an hour and a half ago after Kojo Poku, who was a second aspirant to be vetted by the committee. The first was Alan Kojo-Kyerematen, the former Trade and Industry Minister. He wouldn't talk to the details of what actually transpired during the vetting process, but just to say that it was a successful conversation with the committee, and he is hopeful that he will sail through to the next stage of the contest and use the opportunity to announce that he would be starting his Greater Accra constituency tours to drum home his message or to make a case for his candidature Couple of hours ago, Kojo Poku was the second person to be vetted by the committee. He told the media after the vetting that it was a successful one. The committee congratulated him for the good work and the sterling performance that he exhibited before them. So he's waiting for the recommendation after the committee's work. So the Vice President is the last person to be vetted for today. We know there are 3 aspirants that were slated for today, and he's the last person to be vetted by the committee. So he has been here for the past 1 hour and 30 minutes going through the process, and we know very well that definitely questions of their contributions and what they have been doing for the party will come up, and issues about their vision if they are given the opportunity to lead the party. So that's what I'm getting from the vetting there. But we have not been given access to the vetting room where this whole exercise is taking place. So we can only rely on the aspirants when they come out to tell us or give us a brief as to what transpired in the meeting there or in the committee with the committee. We know the committee is chaired by the former Speaker of Parliament, Mr. or Professor Michael Quay Jr. there. The Vice President is coming out, so I just get closer and we'll listen to what he has to say.
Professional for today.
Blessed, in your shot is the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He's done with the vetting process, but the media has not had the opportunity to get to him for a word from him at all. So he's done with the vetting, and he's currently leaving the campaign office of the NPP. So that's what you are seeing there. Let me find out from Akuba. Akuba, thank you for joining us on Joy News. Okay, so that's one of the special aides to the Vice President, but he has declined to comment as to what actually transpired between the Vice President and the vetting committee. So today the vetting of aspirants have come to an end. Has actually come to an end. 3 aspirants were expected to come for the vetting, and Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is the last person to be vetted. So that is the situation here. But unlike the filing of nominations where we had fanfares from these supporters of the various aspirants, today the situation is quite different. You are only supposed to go with your core team members to the vetting area, and that's what all the aspirants have actually gone through. So if you look at the background here, we don't have a mammoth crowd as witnessed in the filing of the nomination. So for now, I can say that the vetting for the 3 aspirants slated for today, first, the former Trade and Industry Minister, second, Kojo Poku, who is an energy expert, and then the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has finally come to an end for the day. For now, we cannot tell whether any of the aspirants who appeared before the vetting committee has made it to the list or not, because the provision is that after the engagement with them during the vetting, the committee would now write their official recommendation, and that is where the entire processes would continue. So tomorrow we are expecting 3 more aspirants to come and then go through this rigorous process. I must say, about 3 of them, we have the former General Secretary of the NPP, Kwabena J. Japon. We are also expecting Boache Jako, who is a former Energy Minister, and also Kennedy Ejapon, the MP for Asin Central. So these are the 3 that are expected to come tomorrow. It's actually a week-long exercise, and the last will be on Thursday. So each day we'll have 3 aspirants, and then the last day will host only 1 aspirant. So that is the situation here, as you can see in the background here, Blessed.
See a lot in the background there, Samin Bura. Of course, there's one individual right behind you wearing the DMB good boys, whatever that means. Thank you for giving us some updates right from where the vetting is taking place for the new Patriotic Party's presidential aspirants. But in the NDC, questions are emerging over who will serve as the next running mate for the opposition National Democratic Congress. Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman was chosen by John Mahama for the 2020 presidential elections. But sources say no definite decision has been made yet on retaining the good old professor, especially as the party is carrying out a post-mortem on the actual influence of the former education minister and what she brought to bear during the 2020 presidential elections. It's the reason for which we need to have this conversation, as of course the intense lobbying and jostling is going on within the political party. Joining me now is Johnny Osei Kofi, who's a deputy, former deputy chief of staff, joining the conversation now. Thank you, sir, for spending some time with us here on the Johnny channel. Let's start off with this whole, jostling within the NDC. A lot of people making a case for Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman and others also asking for a fresh face going into the 2020 general elections. I just want to pick your thoughts, first of all, on rumors going around that she has been confirmed and will be the one running. If that's the case, what are the fortunes of your party going into the next elections?
Good afternoon, listeners. I hope you hear me.
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay. Yeah, the way you put your question about jostling and rumors and so on, I don't think it is in that vein. I think that the professor, at the time that she was selected, she did well. In campaigning, she has a lot of good marks, in her bag. But for me, sitting here, looking at the dynamics of our own politics, I think that it's time that we shifted attention to Ashanti region. Because the battle for 2024, a lot of it will be in Ashanti region. The concentration is on Ashanti region. The NPP, the ruling government party, is even gearing up to do more campaigning to make sure that they have their numbers here, maintain their numbers, or maintain the margin, or increase their margin. This is the time that the NDC, we feel that we have done a lot in Ashanti, and for Ashanti, and therefore we need Ashanti, to reward the NDC.
Okay, when you say this, when you say this, and you are a very well-known person within the party, you'll be accused of engaging, for instance, in ethnocentric politics, which will not be healthy for your political party. How would you, for instance, respond to such a claim?
It is not ethnocentric. It is all politics. It's not about a tribe. It's not about anything. But it's the politics. It's the numbers. We think that if we choose somebody from here, we'll be able to attract more votes beyond the votes that the votes beyond the NDC numbers as we have at this time. And we want to have a very strong hold here in Ashanti. And we think that, an Ashanti candidate should be able to help us to achieve this with the support of all the other members of the party, both within the region and outside the region. It's a question of numbers. And it is something that, a discussion that has gone on. How do you get more, people in Ashanti region to be voting for the NDC and away from the MPP? So that is why I'm saying that the selection should be from Ashanti, and I'm convinced about that. Many people are also convinced about that.
Okay, let's put this. Let's put this.
It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with the professor or anybody, but it has everything to do with the question of numbers and strategic planning in terms of choice.
I want us to put this to a test. Which names amongst the Ashanti Regional NDC stalwarts will be better placed to serve as the running mate to John Mahama in the 2024 elections?
I think at this moment, it is President Mahama who will have to make that decision that Ashanti, is a choice. Ashanti is if you like, the campaign ground for 2024. Now, if he convinces himself with the party leadership that Ashanti is the case, then we can present to you a number of names. But for now, I would not mention any names.
I can give you a number of names. The last primaries you ran, of course, there was one key, in fact, two of them who ran for presidential candidate. You have Kojo Bonsu and also the former finance minister, Dr. Kwabena Dufo, also going into the race. These two names came up strongly. Are you advising John Mahama to go for these individuals? Consider any of them?
None of them.
Then you don't have a candidate. You don't have anyone from the Ashanti region.
Okay, let President Mahama make that decision. And you know that we have a number of candidates who can fit that bill. We want that decision to be made. So it's not Honorable Kojo Bonsu or Dr. Dufo. That is my opinion.
Then you ask him. Then you ask him to go for Muntaka. He's the only one, I guess, holding perhaps one of the seats for you in the Ashanti region. It's a numbers game, so we need to talk the science about it. Who's going to bring the numbers? That's the question.
Let the John Mahama, the flag bearer, make that decision about Ashanti, and we will surprise you with the names and people who are capable, and we will select one.
Okay,
he will select it.
I'm asking the question because, and this has been made by political scientists. Fortunately, Dr.Asah-Asante is also with us. He's a political scientist at the University of Ghana. So we'll subject that to a test shortly. But take it or leave it, the NDC cannot sweep the Ashanti region in terms of overturning the votes or outperforming the new Patriotic Party. It's a fact, isn't it?
It's not a fact. If we can man our polling stations very well and check certain things which we have identified over the years, in 2024, if we put our feet on the ground, we may not get 1.7 million or 2 million, but we are capable of upsetting the numbers, which will go for us, for the NDC. There's a lot of goodwill in the Ashanti region now for a change. And that is, we have to work, on the wave, the energy that we have, in the region. That is why we have a choice here. We have to get a choice from within the region.
If any region should feel entitled, some say this should be the Volta region. That's quote and unquote the World Bank of the NDC, as you describe it, you in the NDC describe it. Yet that coalition of the party is not even entitled to ask the former president to say, well, give us a vice presidential slot. So why should it be the Ashanti region then?
Okay, it is not a question of entitlement. No region is entitled to have a certain position, within the party at the top there. No region. It's not entitlement. We are saying that it's a question of numbers. The MPP, this is their stronghold. And if we have to win this election, then we have to face the MPP in their stronghold. And let me tell you, the MPP is weaker now than ever. The MPP is not the MPP that we knew. It's not as popular as that. And we think that this is the occasion, and this is the place to pitch our camp and make sure that we get a lot of people who will vote for the NDC. They may not come and join the NDC as such, but for the development works that John Mahama has done in Ashanti as compared to the MPP itself over the years, I think that is why we have to make that choice.
Okay.
It's not about any tribe, any region,
right.
and no. No politics of numbers and a strategy.
Okay.
That is what I believe in. And many of us believe in that strategy.
Okay. When you say many, we'll subject that to further probe shortly. But Johnny, just stay with us because this is a very important conversation, that you're contributing to. Dr. Asah-Asante is a political scientist at the University of Ghana. Doc, you've also been listening to the conversation, and it's come up. In fact, the Daily Dispatch also writing about it today, indicating that the party is at a crossroads, as they're describing it, the need for the party to make a decision. Will the Ashanti region be the best choice for John Mahama going into the 2024 elections?
Good afternoon, Blessed, and good afternoon to your viewers. I think that any of the regions, apart from the home region of John Mahama, is worth considering. Why am I saying this? Because, it will be suicidal for John Mahama to pick anybody from the northern regions, because that is his home area. It will not gel for unity of the party, and then any political advantage that the party can gain from this. But quite apart from that, any of the regions, it's fine that John will be able to pick from. But I will go for a repeat of the last election dose, that they should be able to maintain the lady and the professor.
Okay, and each time that comes up, there's the question as to what really Jane Nana Obukwuejiman brought on board during the 2020 presidential elections. Some arguing otherwise to say, well, if you had featured a different candidate, that person would have brought something else on board in terms of more numbers. I don't know. You are the one watching
the question is, who is that person that he has better credentials than Jane Nana? Let's look at the professor, what he brought to the table. The professor has a number of constituencies as an academic. He brought a number of scholars to the fore. Two, as somebody from Central Region, obviously he's coming from a constituency. As a woman, the gender factor is also in here. And then as somebody who has made a lot of progress in her life, she appeals to a lot of well-meaning Ghanaians, and is a symbol of hope for young and developing people, right? So, and then given the fact that a giant party like the NDC has, stepped out to bring such a candidate out, it's a plus. So I believe that the woman has all that it takes to partner with John.
Okay.
And last election,
yes,
there is no who can convince me with any scientific, figures that the woman, because of inclusion, that's why they got the figures low and all that. No, the woman's addition was a good one, and I believe that strategically, if they really want to maintain their hold, they should maintain the woman. But apart from that, any other person is also qualified. Yes.
Angle you've not been looking at, and of course I just put that to Johnny Osei Kofi, who is the former Deputy Chief of Staff. Also looking at the Ashanti region, for instance, there's a lot of, opinions flying about within the National Democratic Congress as we speak, and he says, well, the best interest of the party must stand, and that should be the Ashanti region because of the quote-unquote vulnerability of the governing party in the region. Has that been established?
I have, in all these things, I have a difficulty in all these things. I look for somebody with a certain acumen, certain characteristics, right? But the issue of when they say region, you are talking about regionalist consideration, and it dovetails into our ethnic conversation. But research has shown that if you want to play the ethnic card, ethnicity has very little place in elections, I can tell you. People make a whole lot of noise. They will tell you that they want the person from the region and all that. But when you stretch the conversation further, they will not be able to say it in public. But it goes down to what? The issue of ethnicity. Ethnicity has never featured prominently in Ghanaian politics. If you're looking at the literature,
but you've listened to him. He says it has nothing to do with that. I mean, Johnny, you're still with us. What's your reaction to this? The feeling
Johnny cannot say that, and he will never say that.
Right.
Nobody will say that because it's not a good thing. But I'm saying that let us look for people who have certain qualities as opposed to where they come from and the rest of them.
Okay.
I am saying that the person can come from any region apart from the home region of John Mahama, because if you put the flag bearer and the running mate from the same region, it will not gel or bode well.
Okay.
For
all right. Just hold on for me, Doc. Johnny, so the point is that regardless of, who the NDC may consider, once it's not from the home region of former President John Mahama, that should be good for the NDC to go with.
Yeah, the question have been put severally, about, okay, if it's not this, what? Yes. So some people have suggested, okay, let's go to Greater Accra, let's go to Volta, let's go to this. All that permutations and so on has been made. But let me assure you that whatever my brother is saying about ethnicity, it's not ethnicity. It's the numbers, it's strategy. We are not saying that, I'm not saying that because, we are an Ashanti region, somebody must come from Ashanti. There are people who are not from this region. I'm not saying that they are Ashantis, but they don't live in this region. And they think that, we must choose somebody from this region. And that is what we are looking at. It has nothing to do with ethnicity. And I would plead that nobody brings into, the conversation about ethnicity.
Yeah, but that will come up. You are an astute politician. That will come up.
That's what somebody wants to create. Because, look, that's what somebody, wants to create. That is an ethnic factor. It's not. People are afraid to talk about it in this way because they will say, they will say ethnicity. I'm not afraid to say it because I know it is not an ethnic issue that I'm talking about. I'm talking about where we can face our strongest opponent and win. And that is it.
Okay, here's the thing. You are very influential. You're telling us now that perhaps this is not just a reflection of an individual perspective and that some other persons within the party share the same concern with you. Has there been an effort, either overt or through your diplomatic channels, to try and reach out to now the leader of your party who's going to stand the elections in the 2024 contest to say, go for an Ashanti? What would be JM's take, for instance, on that?
Well, he will listen. If I know the John Mahama very well, he will listen to all the arguments and finally make his decision. So if we are bringing the Ashanti card because we think that we have to tackle our greatest opponent on its own turf, which for me, I feel very strongly about it, then so be it. It's not because Professor Opoku-Agyeman, is not a good person, is not qualified and so on. But who says that we may not even get a professor of the same caliber from the region? But that is why I'm saying, let us wait. When we are convinced that this is the way to go, we go that way.
If you're saying that, this would not be a vote of no confidence if JM changes Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, then here's the question as well: that what will you lose as a political party if you have her running again side by side John Mahama in the 2024 elections?
Well, we have her running again. Is that what you say?
Yes. What will you lose as a party?
Well, if the president, well, I always say the president because he has been my president for a long time. If he decides to, go with the professor, so be it, and we will all respect that.
No, but that's not my question. My question is, what will you lose as a political party if Jane and Alpo goes into the 2024 elections with John Mahama?
If I answer that question which other way, I will not be being fair to my argument, and I will not be fair to her.
Okay, so you don't have an argument, you say?
I don't have an argument. I have an argument, but I won't say this on radio.
So tell us then, because you're saying that it will be a better option for the party to go to play the Ashanti card. I'm saying that what will you then lose?
We are not playing the Ashanti card. Let's play the Ashanti region
card. Okay, good way of qualifying that. What will you lose as a political party if Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman runs again side by side John Dramani Mahama?
I don't think we will lose much. We will lose much. But I think we have a lot to gain if we chose, the region Ashanti as the battleground and use indigenous people to lead the charge. That is all that I am saying. And that is what other people are saying. And those other people are not people who live in Ashanti or are even Ashantis. So I want to make it very clear that it is not, an ethnic issue. It's only a strategic issue. And we think that this is the time. There are a lot of young people in this region who on daily basis are wishing to vote for the NDC in the next election. But who is to ginger them? Who is to encourage them? Who is to lead the charge, to gather all of them? There are other business people who are interested. So that is why I think that we have to make Ashanti, the second headquarters of the NDC and work towards the 2024 election.
The NDC prides itself as one of the political parties, for namesake and for what you claim you've stood for over the years, to be a democratic political party. Are you seeking to take this out to the national leadership of the party collectively and not just as an individual?
Well, we are having discussion all over the place. And then you use a term that is that what?
You pride yourself as a democratic political party. That's what I'm saying, sir.
I pride myself.
No, your political party, the NDC.
Yes, it is a democratic party.
Yes.
So it's not that, it's solid on that matter. In that direction. Okay? So, that is it for you. We are just planning to have it done and build this thing for you. I lost the thread of your question.
Oh, apologies. I was just asking if you're going to send a petition to the national leadership of the party.
No. It's not a question of petitioning. I don't think that is the way to go. That people in the Ashanti region, we write a letter to national and so on. But a discussion like this that we are having also goes down. And those who are leaders, they would put two and two together.
Okay.
So I don't think that we are going to have a big meeting or a conference and so on and debate this. I don't think so.
Okay.
But now that this thing is being discussed, I'm sure all those who matter in making decisions in the party are also listening. At the end of the day, they will form a certain opinion. And then John Mahama will make his decision.
Yeah, he would have to make that decision. I'll give you the final word to yourself and then Dr. Asah-Asante, who's with us. Let me start off with you, Dr. Asah-Asante. What will be the marching orders? Well, you don't hold any office within the NDC. But what do you see happening in the coming days, given what's, coming up?
Yeah, I must say that, let me first disagree with Ms. Osei. Ms. Osei was saying that you need somebody in Ashanti region to ginger the people. So my question is, are you saying that if you don't pick anybody, in case John Mahama decides that he will not pick anybody from Ashanti region, there's nobody to ginger him? That is not the case, all right? Whoever is appointed is the representative of the party. And if there is anything called gingering people, the person can do it across all the regions. You need somebody who will bring a lot on the table to support the process and to make sure that the choice that you have reflects the dreams and aspirations of the people, and the person is bringing a lot on the table. That is it, but not necessarily that you need somebody who's from the region to ginger the people before they give their vote or you win the numbers. No.
This will be a hard decision for John Mahama, you agree?
It is not. It is not. This is not the first time he's selecting somebody to partner him. So it's something that he can do. But I'm saying that, I'll go back to my point, that the woman is a material worth considering, and so is any other person who come from any of the regions, apart from John Mahama's home region, in order to have a regional balance and to make sure that all you have proper shades of opinion represented. But let us look at somebody who has the qualities. Yes, whoever that you going to line up, you need to assess them on individual basis. Their strength, not only their qualities, but do they have baggage in the system? Because if the person has baggage, you are going to struggle to deal with that. You want to also know whether the person name resonate with people in and across the country. You want to also know that the person whether has really worked before and has something to show, because all these things will come up. So it's a tall order. It's not that simple. But I know that those who are elected in Ghana as flag bearers, they have what it takes to be able to do this. So I'm not sure that it will be difficult for John to be able to decide who will partner him. But I think that the woman is a material worth considering. And so is any other person from any region apart from John Mahama's home region. That would be the best bet for the party.
Doc, thanks for your time. Mr. Osei, as we wrap up, a minute for you. What will be your final words and message to, rank and file of the party?
Yeah, somebody was disturbing me with a call. Your question, please.
What will be your final message to, rank and file of the party as we, of course, wrap up this conversation?
Yeah. Let me just say that I disagree with Mr. Asante.
Dr.Asah-Asante, yes.
That, the argument that he made, it's just an academic argument. And it is true. Everybody is this, you have to be that, and so on and so forth. It's an academic argument. My argument is that we have a battlefield and we have to fight it. What is the best strategy here? Use the local people here who know the terrain, who know the houses, who know the communities to do this. People that they can identify that, we know this guy, he's always been here and so on. Look, the vote for Ashanti region alone in Ashanti region is so big that the MPP uses that, a lot to win the elections. We have to be able to chip in there and take more of that vote on our side, which we think is possible when we are able to prevent certain things that normally happens during elections. And we are determined to do that. So, thank you.
Okay, and I'm sure that this conversation will definitely continue. We'll reconnect some other time. Thank you for spending some time with us. You heard from the former Deputy Chief of Staff, Johnny Osei-Kofi, and also Dr. Asah-Asante, who's a political scientist at the University of Ghana. You're watching The Pulse on the Joy News channel. When we get back, we'll talk about some more development. As far as the close season is concerned, the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture is making some fresh directives, and yet we're not seeing the impact and cooperation from the fisher folk. We'll get into the details for you shortly as far as the close season is concerned. You're watching The Pulse. We'll be back shortly. Thanks for staying with us. The Minister of Education says Ghana is setting a standard for the phase of STEM education globally. Speaking at the launch of STEM Innovation Competition 2023, Minister for Education Dr. Asah-Asante revealed his ministry is committed to ensuring that STEM education will be implemented fully in all schools across the country. And of course, we've been tracking that event that transpired today for you. And it's the reason for which we're bringing two amazing persons into studio to have a conversation about STEM, innovation, and also what that will be bringing on board into the education sector. Let me introduce to you Aaron Chum Akwaba, who's the Director of Strategy, Innovation at the Ministry of Education. And we also do have Nana Afra-Sika Mensah, who's the Deputy Coordinator, National Free SHS Secretary. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for joining us. It's a good time to be having a conversation, first off, about the free education and enhancing it with STEM. But now let's start off with STEM innovation. I'm sure that that's what you are all wearing today. Yes. A lot of people have seen the brand but don't know the idea around it. What's STEM innovation, by the way? Okay. You're deferring to the ladies first. Okay.
Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and then innovation.
Yes.
So we double a STEM innovation.
Yeah.
It's simply a STEM competition among senior high schools, senior high technical, and then TVET schools across the country.
Right.
Yeah, so last year, we gave them 3 themes to work on it. We gave them solar for socio-economic development, recycling for socio-economic development, and then coding and programming for socio-economic development of Ghana. So basically, STEM innovation is just a STEM competition among high schools.
Is this going to take the form of some of the quiz competitions that we have running? Is that how you intend to run this? What approach are you giving to it?
All right, okay. So we give them 3 things. So the theme for this year is future-proofing for socio-economic development in Ghana through STEM education. So under these main themes, we have 3 sub-themes. Okay. That is urban gardening, clean water, and then electricity. So these are the themes we've given out to the students for them to develop a project of them. Not just a project, but when you are developing that project should be able to solve an issue within your community or the society.
If the question comes up as to why this is essential for the education sector, why should this be?
I'll try to answer it succinctly. It's essential because it's what's happening in the 21st century. I have no problems with quizzes in Ghana or anywhere else in the world, but we have to move through and beyond the quiz to do. We've been checking what students know for so long that we forgot to talk about what they can do and what they can create. And so that is why we need this. We need STEM innovation because it matches with the minister's STEM push and with our new push to having 21st century skills within our schools. So students are learning presentation skills because you have to present these things through Zoom in the first 2 rounds, even before you get to the final round. So you have to present. You also have to do teamwork. You're going to be in a team of 3 to 5 young people. You also have to learn how to listen. You have a coach that is going to be coaching you as a teacher to support you through the process. And you're going to have to learn experimentation and innovation and creativity. There isn't another quiz or challenge within the public sphere in Ghana today that does that.
Okay, are you running this for all schools?
Every single solitary second cycle school in the country.
Whether public or private?
They're all public. Okay. So we're doing this through the free SHS program. And so doing it through our free SHS, we are starting through our public schools. It's public secondary schools. So meaning that if you are a TVET institution, you are a part. If you are secondary technical, you're a part. If you are our traditional grammar schools, you're a part. So nearly the 1,000 public second cycle schools in this country should all be a part of this.
How do you intend to bridge the gap of equipping some of the students? Are you giving them the same sets of tools that they would need for the presentations and all that? Because some will accuse you of being biased and not being fair to all of them. Yes.
It's a local image. You are using your local materials to develop the projects. So it's not that we will give you a project for you to, we give you the materials for you to develop a project on it.
Because you know that will come up. Some will say.
So, and it's actually, we really want to use evidence, right? So when we have our conversations, we don't want to say that we hope and we think. Let's use evidence from last year. The evidence from last year is that the 97 institutions that came along, there was a huge amount of them that were TVET schools, that were category C schools. There were schools that you would traditionally not see in quizzes, traditionally feel as if they were not schools that would be academically strong or even financially capable. But remember, this is about innovation. So it's what you can do or what you have. So let's use a school like Rara, right? I didn't even know Rara was a place in this country. I had to look it up on the map. So we find out that Rara, who ends up placing second, the young people there were able to make solar panels and things of that nature that are being used in the community today. So usually they'll say, well, you didn't give them anything. We're no longer giving. We're no longer catching fish for you to hopefully eat. We're going to teach you how to go through that process. And maybe you won't even be looking to catch fish anymore, but you will find something new to catch to make sure that you're sustained.
How will you run this? And are you open to all schools? Is that how you're running it?
It's open. We've already sent letters to schools. So schools have come on board. I think currently we have about 190 schools that have registered. And then we are looking at bringing the deadline to 15th of this month. So from today up to 15th, all schools can come on board and register, only the public senior high school. Looking at the investments we are pumping into the free senior high
so
school.
they first of all have to register?
Yes.
Okay.
So we've sent a link to them, so they will register through the link. So if you have any challenge, we have our contact and everything over there. You contact us and then we will help you.
And registration is free. I really want to make sure we know that that's
So you're not paying, no one is paying?
No, you're not paying to play in this process at all.
Okay. How would this, practically speaking, feed into improving, first of all, the education sector and the policy that we're running, the free senior high school policy?
You know, our education, initially it was just theoretical aspect that we were dealing with. So we wanted to do away with the theory. That is, you chew, pour, pass, and then at the end of the day, you forget. This one, we are bringing something practical. So use an innovative way to create something that can be able to, not just creating an innovative project, but that project should be able to solve an issue within your community. Look at this flooding issues that we have in our country. How can students help this, use an innovative way to solve an issue? Urban gardening is one of the sub-themes. Operation Feed Yourself. Look at the perishables that we are paying to the schools. Can they do something like urban gardening just to at least feed themselves within the schools or even the society that we have? You can buy a tuber of yam for like 5 cedis when you go to the north. But when you get down here, you may get it for like 15 cedis or 20 cedis. So we look at all this transportation and everything. That's why we brought this urban gardening and then efficient use of electricity, which is also one of the sub-things.
Is this the first time you're running this? Because honestly, I've never heard of STEM innovation.
We were doing this is year 2. We did a lot of the media blitz for this last year also. But and it's a fair thing to say that sometimes we just have to do even more communication. We have to over communicate because I think.
No, but it's fair if this is the second.
It's year 2, and anytime that we have projects like this, we're going to consistently over communicate. So the average Ghanaian knows exactly what we're doing, because you asked the question about where is this going to lead to, and there's a lot of tangible things that Nana was able to mention, but the intangible is confidence. We want our young people to believe that they can solve their own problems. We are very, very tired, and not we, just myself and the ministry, but we as Ghanaians are probably very tired of hearing "Obanbeya." We don't want that to be the mantra for our youth, our children who are 20 years and younger. We want this next generation to say, I'm going to do it myself. I can do it myself and I have the skills to do it.
And then we saw the minister do some prelude, the STEM drive and a number of activities leading to this. Is that part of the package of trying to encourage more students to be part of this?
Yes, we want more students to come on board because there are lots of amazing projects in there, so we want a lot of students to come on board. Last year, for instance, Rara, as my brother rightly said, they've commercialized some of the projects. So you go to rural electrification in Rara, that is in Oti region. They don't expect government to come and do electricity for them.
So they did their own solar panel?
Exactly.
And they were number 2. Number 1 actually did a prototype of a smart home.
A smart home.
And physically made it was larger than this entire table and brought it to us.
In Ghana?
All the way from
Ghana,
Kumasi.
yes.
And these are just young men and women all over our country, like you said, in Ghana, doing wonderful things.
Wow.
We need to challenge the students. They have a lot of...
But by the way, what's up for grab in terms of the ultimate? Are you giving them some cash so I can also, go back to school and be part of it?
No. Overage player.
So what's at stake for the schools, and the school that
There's so many amazing prizes over there. Last year we gave them, I don't want to mention, but this year we have a lot of interesting prizes, but we want to keep it on the low.
I'm asking the question because do we have, say, a system to keep coaching these students and mentoring them even after the competition?
Yes, we have a set of international judges that are doing that for us, and we have local judges, mentors, and then teachers too as well.
I see. We're wrapping up. Any final message for our viewers? Those, the schools, many of the headmasters are watching us now. They'll start calling.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want to say. If you are a public second cycle institution in the Republic of Ghana and you have not applied for STEM Innovation, find us on Instagram, Twitter, and the rest. It's just Facebook. And Facebook. We're on all of the social medias. Please register, become a part of this, and you can even register multiple projects per school, meaning if you want to do a team for each of the 3 topics, that would be wonderful. We want to be inundated with these things. Also, if you are private industry, we've been looking out for you all, and we're looking to you to become partners. This is not us begging for anything, but it's us to have a strong partnership, because what we want to do is create the skilled workers for your future business.
Right. And that's why it's STEM innovation, right?
Exactly.
STEM and innovation.
Innovation. And so you need to be a part of this. If you want to support, obviously, you can just reach out to the team at the Education Ministry. They will definitely be happy to work with you. But that's all we have for you in this package of the Pulse. I'm Blessed Sogan. Log on to myjoyonline.com. Lots of stories there for you to catch up on. Bye-bye for now.